Hey everyone, this is John Morellis, and I've received a bunch of questions about exactly how I lit this shot of this model standing in front of a hotel room door. I did this shoot for a local magazine. We did a lingerie shoot, and we picked a number of locations. And the idea for this shoot was that we're going to tell a story of the day in the life of this woman who is extremely inappropriate. So at the end of the day, we ended up at this motel that I had scouted out, and I wanted a very specific look, but the existing lighting there wasn't rich enough to create that look. So, of course, I added my own lighting. Now, I'm going to show you a basic lighting gram that lays out the light. So here we have my subject, and my main light here is it was a dynalite with a grid spot, and it was shining towards the subject, and it lit up the motel, the wall of the motel, and her back, and created some nice rim lighting. Um, and then next up, I had another head with a grid spot, and this was aimed towards the ivy on the stairs, and it bled over a little bit onto this back wall here. And then I had another head with a grid spot, and this was shining on the ivy below the stairs. The key here is that I didn't want any black spots, any spots that just rendered completely black and just sort of detracted from the scene. And by the way, I used a Dynalite head here and ran a plug into a power cord. And then for this head here and this one here, I used battery operated packs. I used Profoto 7Bs, and they can operate independently of any electricity and independently of each other. Next up, I had my main light on the subject. It hit her here in her face and in her body, and it was a Dynalite strobe plugged in, and it was bounced into the room and then reflected back out to her. And the reason why I bounced it is because I didn't want a very harsh light. I wanted a very soft light that felt very natural, much like as if she were actually standing in front of the door and the ambient light from the room was hitting her. And then my camera was positioned off to the side. For this shot, I used a Hasselblad H1 with a 50 millimeter lens and a digital back. I used the Leaf Aptus 75S, and my shutter speed was about a third of a second, and my aperture was about 5.6 and a half. I didn't shoot wide open with this because I didn't want my depth of field to be too shallow that I risked rendering my subject out of focus. Okay, so that's the basic overview, and now I'm going to walk you through it in the actual shot. So here's my girl, here's my subject, and first off, the first thing I did is I lit this area here. I wanted where it says ice machine vending, I wanted that to be highlighted, and I wanted you to see the kind of cool ivy. Um, so what I did is I used a grid spot, and I used it about 8 feet high, so that way it would cast this shadow up here. I previously had it higher, but then I actually lowered it so you could see more of the shadow. I like the drama that the shadow created. So a grid spot, for those of you who don't know, is sort of a honeycomb piece of metal that you put in front of the light that really narrows where the light goes. It keeps it from going everywhere, and it just sort of limits it to a spot that I want to restrict the light. Okay, so next up, I had another head with a grid spot underneath the staircase here. And again, the idea was to keep that from going to pitch black because then you wouldn't see the stair railing here, and it would just be kind of annoying to me. I like very rich, richly lit images. Okay, next up I have my another grid spot that was up here on the second floor, and you can see a little bit of the flare from that light as it comes over, and what it does is it lights up this wall and also provides this beautiful little rim light that separates the model from the background. And then finally we had my bounced light. So this is the light inside the room that was bounced against the back wall. The room itself was painted yellow, so you can see the light here is very warm. And again, it kind of creates a natural feel because you'd expect your ambient tungsten lighting, such as these lights here, you expect those to be warm, so this light matches up with that. So that was pretty much it. It took about, I would say, maybe 20 minutes to set this light up. My biggest frustration was with this light because it was a little bit too bright, and I kept having to scream at my assistants and then run downstairs and really tone that light down. I actually had to use neutral density filtration to knock down the light because I couldn't turn that light low enough to match the rest of the lighting on the scene. So that's it. I hope you enjoy the photo and this video. Take care.